In this video, I just wanted to show you guys an example of what a Bareland condo plan looks like. So in the previous, I think in the objectives, I actually show you an example of like a standard or conventional condo. So the conventional condo plan always has everybody kind of stacked together in like an apartment building style. A Bareland condo is when you actually own your own backyard. So here's an example of a Bareland condo here in Calgary, I believe. So again, this was done in 2008, so it was registered. We can tell that by looking at the title. And then we have our condo area. So in this condo area, we have the boundary of the condo area. And then we have the, then we have the actual units. So instead of having lots, they actually do units. And so each unit, each individual unit is where you're going to have somebody who's purchased the connected building. A lot of Bareland condos are actually attached housing, like multifamily dwellings, but they're only attached on the walls, like on the one side or like to the next person. And but some of them do have individual freestanding buildings, and it's just that your property is that full unit. So you're going all the way to the actual boundary of the land, and or of the actual boundary of the townhouse area, and you own everything in there. Now you will see on some of these plans it will show like the angles and the distances to known areas. They planted one here, but they had this line that they knew before. And we have meters, and we have DMS. That's based on our our notes over here. So let's take a look over here. See if there's any notes that tells us what are we dealing with. So it says grid bearings. So it's grid bearings. And so we have it based on the grid. Then it's not a quadrant bearing. So when it says bearing, we're referring to the survey term bearing, and which is like you set your 0 and you go from there. In this case, in the mapping side of things, we refer to bearings often as like the quadrant bearings. So you're going to see the north, something like some angle in south, or not in south, east. But this one we consider azimuth in the mapping world, but in surveying they refer to a lot of these azimuths when they're based off of a grid north. They call it a grid bearing. So that's just again something important to note there, that you're going to see a little bit of difference in terminology. And then we have common property as well. So this is often like parking lots. This might be like a playground or a little like maybe where the mailboxes are. So you're going to see those common properties. So the next page of this, I gotta zoom out. Oops. To give it a moment while it loads. Of course, I'm pulling it from the O drive through a VPN client, so I should have put this onto my own hard drive. Perhaps I'll just close it and then I can reopen it. And then I can, oops, I opened it in the wrong. You have to use, I tend to use Windows photo viewers for these ones with the separate sheets. So if you have, if you open it up in another photo viewer, you may not find these extra sheets because it's got the extra sheets. So again, we're going back to the lecture that I gave before. You would have had you would have had 4 or 5 sheets. So here now we're back at the units. So now we actually have the measurements on sheet 2. So we knew where all of the placements were on the previous one. Now we're actually seeing the details. So we know that every one of these units is 2.5 meters wide, which you think, oh wow, that's like really narrow. And yeah, they can be. They can be really narrow. And they're not in chains, so this is all in meters, so 2.5 meters. And then we have 4 meters on these bigger ones, and so forth. And then we've got our grid, the grid bearings is what it's called again in surveying, or what we refer to as azimuths, grid azimuths in mapping. Again, showing the common property here. We go all the way down And we have these spacings in between our buildings and our units. So you'll notice, one thing you'll notice really quickly with the with condo plans is that there's no blocks. So it's just merely a plan and a unit number. The block idea is really just for the single family dwellings or single dwellings. This one is for multifamily. So a little bit different in that way. They're obviously, units are generally much smaller than what you would see for a single family home. So just to give you some idea of what a Bareland condo plan looks like, it looks a little different because you don't have the actual building outlines because you own your building. So you would go to an RPR for that. So anyways, so that is plans in a series of different videos. So if you haven't seen the other videos, you can go check those out as well, and just kind of broke them up for you so that they're not all crammed into one big long lecture.